Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Schmidt. I was trained in Western medicine as a physician assistant, where I was exposed to the dark side of medicine. Through self-education and biohacking, I figured out ways to hack my system, becoming a better version of myself. We'll explore the wisdom and insight of my findings with each episode of the Becoming Superhuman podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. We're here with Dr. Lynn, who's a naturopath and yoga therapist who's authored multiple books. Dr. Lynn, how are you doing today?
I'm fine, thank you. It's fun to be here.
Pleasure to speak with you today. I know you've got about 30 years of experience in this naturopathic world. Looking forward to gaining your insight. But you have this interesting background in yoga. Kind of give a little insight on how you got into this whole naturopathic world?
Well, usually people fall into things as a result of their curiosity. They're trying to solve a problem. And I go way back to, I was a single mother with 2 children on welfare, putting myself through college. I was bartending part-time and had kids and going to college and trying to get all these balls going. Long story short, I successfully did it, but I also found myself being very burnt out and very exhausted at the end of this sort of journey. And that's what kind of led me back to my roots where I grew up, which was in a small island off the coast of Maine. And I sort of came back to that natural way of looking at life. And the way to be able to heal myself, I knew, was through diet and exercise and rest. And that kind of led me into yoga as well, which is a philosophy and something I've practiced for over 40 years.
I've gotten into yoga over the past about 10 years now, and it's just changed my life. And I think that it's worth stating that the misconception of yoga as only an exercise as opposed to a philosophy. So can you go into that a little bit?
Sure, yeah, and you're absolutely right. A lot of people come to a yoga class and they want to build muscles or whatever they want to do, and I always remind them that that's calisthenics. That's an exercise class. Yoga is body, mind, and soul, and you should come with all three, and you're there to work all three: body, mind, and soul. And my path has been the philosophy of karma. Karma, again, is a philosophy. It's a science, an approach to yoga. And that's really how we need to approach it from the philosophical standpoint.
Can you explain, as if I don't know, what karma is and from a basics standpoint?
Sure. People, when they think of karma, they think of the pop culture definition of karma, good or bad karma. If I do something bad's going to happen to me. That's not karma. That's judgment. So what karma teaches us is we're just a product of our energy. Everything is cause and effect. That's what it is. It simply is not good or bad. If I put out energy that's negative energy, say towards you, say I'm very negative towards you, you're probably going to send that energy back to me. So that's cause and effect. Is it good? Is it bad? That's not up to us to judge. It's up to us to see where our energy is going and then be able to direct it in ways that obviously bring about kindness and humility and the good philosophy of yoga.
My understanding, it's more important about what we believe that we're doing. If we believe that we're doing is good versus if we believe that what we're doing is bad, and that plays an effect on whether we are creating positive or negative karma. What's your understanding of that?
Well, yeah, of course, we have to remove the the good and the bad, because that's where we get into, again, the judgment. So karma really, like anything in life, it's all about awareness. How aware are you of your energy and what you're putting out into the world? Again, if you are putting out kindness and that's coming from your soul and you're putting that out, you're going to manifest that physically, you're going to manifest that mentally, and that's going to affect your life in a very positive way, as opposed to being, let's say, angry all the time and pushing anger out. So it really is all about coming back, being aware of who you are and what you're doing, as opposed to, say, me pointing my finger at you. You're not looking at the outside world, you're coming inside, being aware of how to use your energy to manifest positive things in your life.
So it's almost like tuning in with different energy that we want to experience.
Exactly. We all know what it feels like to be angry, and everybody experiences that. That's a human emotion. It's not bad. We are here to experience that. It's what do you do with it? Do you perpetuate it? Do you manifest it more? Or are you able to feel it within your body and come back to a place of calmness and then approach whatever the situation from a different point of view as opposed to anger? Very difficult for us to do as human beings to stop in the moment of emotional, anger, catch your breath, and then come back with compassion and understanding. Very difficult. And that's why we have to practice, 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 and keep on practicing.
What I've been trying to do personally is that, through meditation, and I see this as training my mind. I heard it described as if you're like training a dog, right? And so you got to sit, relax, be calm. And so we're doing the same thing with the mind. Is that which you try to portray or teach through your yoga teachings?
Yes, yeah. No, I mean, it's body, mind, and soul, and all three of them. And when we can get to the soul, and the soul is not some esoteric thing out there, the soul is your essence. We all have an essence. When you walk in a room, you bring an energy with you. It is you. That is your essence, and it is unique to you. So when we tap into our inner essence, and then we're able to be aware and sort of step back and look at it, then we can manifest things physically and mentally in the world. And it can make a tremendous difference in how both you approach the world and how the world approaches you.
When you say, who are you, or you are the soul, can you try and break that down a little bit into, have someone who perhaps doesn't really understand what that means? How would you describe that to them?
Well, we all have a deeper inner place inside us. Something that if you can clear your mind of all the clutter that's in there that's going on and kind of step back and get in touch with the inner part of your body, how it's moving, you'll get in touch with an energy. That's what the soul is. It's energy. According to karma, you come back to earth and choose to be a human being. Your soul chooses. And when your soul does, it takes on a particular body for a particular journey through life. And that's what manifests us into having feelings and emotions. So the soul is kind of coming back, and it's being able to get quiet, still, and listen. Listen to who you are inside. Not easy. Not easy in this world.
Can you explain what the karmic wheel is and how that applies?
Well, what that means, it's like the hamster on the wheel. It's a perpetual wheel. You get up every day and you're an angry, grumpy person, and the world just doesn't treat you right. And so you're an angry, grumpy person. And then the next day, the world doesn't treat you right. And you're that hamster running and running and running on that karmic wheel. Our journey here is to transcend that and ultimately not to have to come back to earth and keep reliving these different lives that we have to live to work through our karma. So that's really the essence of what karma is about. So it's getting off from that perpetual wheel, and how you get off that is awareness. If you're aware, if all of a sudden one day, something shakes you and you realize, oh, I am like this grumpy, angry person getting up and going out every day. No wonder people treat me this way. Then you turn that around, you've made a karmic shift.
As you said, we're choosing to stay here to work through our karma. Then how do we get to the point where we can, perhaps burn off the karma or stop creating new karma that we would need to be here for?
It's called practice, 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 and keep on practicing. It's all about coming back and practicing. And again, it goes back to awareness. What are you trying to do in the world? I mean, if you get up every day and you're trying to create kindness and goodwill and those things, and you really work to put that stuff out there, then you're working through some what we'll call negative karma, the stuff that pulls us back and keeps us in that perpetual wheel. Nobody wants to stay in that emotional feeling world. Everybody wants peace and serenity. And then more peace and serenity comes to you. And that's when you're jumping over those karmic wheels.
You've been practicing for 30, 40 years now in teaching this. And this is the karmic, is that your main focus, is teaching people about karma?
Yes, it is. Yes. Hmm.
Or what is the typical person coming to you for? And what would their problems be that the treatment would be discussing the karma?
Twofold. One is a lot of time if people come to me and they're depressed or they have, some issue that they're dealing with, I do as a naturopath, I step up to the plate and let's look at your lifestyle. Let's look at your diet. Let's look at stress. Let's look at what's going on. From a yoga standpoint, most people come to me because they're questioning. They're questioning things in their life. And maybe, they have failed marriages. Maybe, they have things aren't working out at work. Maybe things aren't where they would like them to be in their life. So they're questioning, why is this, and how do I get out of this? And how do I get beyond this? And, my answer is, you got to come here with your body, your mind, and your soul. You got to get quiet. You got to be aware. You got to find that inner place. And then you have to do the work. Nobody wants to do the work anymore. I mean, when I say that, I mean, I'm being very, saying that out loose. But, we're a society of give me a pill right away. Get me right there. I want to work my karma through. Let me do it in 10 minutes. It doesn't work that way. It's a lifelong process and it never stops.
When you speak of the energy, where do we get the energy from and how can we get more of it?
We have an energy field around us. That's what we are. We're a vibration of energy. Everything in the universe is energy. We vibrate at a much lower level, therefore we manifest into a physical form. If I was to take your physical form and really speed up the molecules real fast, you would disappear, because that's, it's sort of like if you think about water, water is fluid. If we slow down the molecules, it becomes ice. If we speed them up with heat, it becomes steam. So it's a matter of energy is everywhere. And it's how you choose to work your energy. Are you eating a healthy diet? Are you exercising? Are you keeping your mind clear? I can tell you, you're going to have far more energy than if you're eating junk food and you're depressed and you're sitting somewhere. Mm-hmm. So your energy is yours to do with what you please. Nobody's telling you how to manifest your energy.
So would that be fair to say that's the control of the energy is through the willpower?
Absolutely. That is, we have this wonderful gift that we've been given, all of us. Everyone has willpower. We just forget. We forget that we don't have that ability to choose. I can choose to see any situation in life the way I want to choose it. I have that ability, but I have to be aware that however I look at anything in the world comes with my perceptions and my attitudes and my biases and my prejudices, which we all have as human beings. So it's how do you remove those and get to the purity of things? Really difficult, but it's worth the work.
Right. I've recently read through Yogananda, his teachings. He claims that energy is from the humans, as we don't take the energy or draw the energy from the food, the water, the air, but rather we draw it in from the prana, from the life force, this all-pervasive energy surrounding us. What's your understanding of that? Because most people believe that if you don't have energy, you go eat food or you go, drink water or go exercise.
Right. Well, prana is the life force that gives us life. It's not breath. Prana is what causes you to breathe. That's what causes you to breathe. Then you bring the oxygen in. Oxygen is a nutrient. You need it as much as you need any other nutrient. But as all living things need to have nutrients to be able to survive, and they all need water to be able to survive. So yes, the prana is what kicks life in. Then once you manifest life in this world, you do need to pay attention to what you are feeding your cells, your body, because you are an energy field. And if you don't give your energy, just like a car, if you don't give your car the fuel to run on, it's not going to run.
When you're teaching people raise their energy or their vibrations, what aspects of their life are you addressing?
Obviously, look at diet and stress, lifestyle issues. Those things are really important. There's the 3 pillars of health, which is diet, exercise, and sleep. Are those 3 things in balance? Because that's ultimately whether it's yoga or whether it's naturopathy, what we are looking for is balance. When you have complete balance, body, mind, and soul, you have complete health. Everything is in balance. Just think about your body. If your heart and your lungs and everything is working in perfect balance, you have perfect health. And that's what we're striving for. So it's starting with the basics. And then if someone, then their energy, then we have to get into what's going on in their mind, what's going on in their life. Because you can eat a really healthy diet and exercise and do all those things, but you got a lot of scrambling going on up here because you're going through a divorce, or you just lost your job, or whatever that issue is. So we have to get into what's going on up here too.
What's your teachings or practice on, controlling the mind?
That comes back to breathing, comes back to quieting your mind and being able to kind of let go of those things. Sometimes you have to talk to someone about it. Sometimes you have to kind of get that stuff out. In my yoga class, for example, we do twice in the class, we stop and do what's called a sitting Zen. And everybody just sits quietly and they release their body and they quiet their mind and they take 3 deep breaths. And at the end of those 3 breaths, there's just a calmness and a quietness because they've let go. And you have to let go of the things that you can feel in your mind. You can feel the tension in your shoulders and your back, when you're stressed. So it's breathing and letting go of that, letting that energy get its perfect balance.
How has meditation impacted your life?
Well, meditation is a wonderful tool for allowing you to sort of pull back and relax and let go and, and perhaps maybe process things. I would say meditation, more for me, it's been the practice than deep meditation, although we do meditation in my class, but meditation to me is something that is more about the person being able to let go of everything and just kind of find the moment. And that's extremely difficult and a lot of work because, as I say to my students, the minute we get in it, I said, okay, what's going to come next is monkey mind, or they call it popcorn mind, over here, over here, over here. And so you got to bring it in and kind of use the breath to bring yourself back to the moment.
You practice breath work as well with your students?
Yes, I do. Yeah, we practice that. We practice everything. We take time out to just breathe. We do a lot of belly breathing because when you're breathing from the belly, you're working the diaphragm. The diaphragm's a muscle that every mammal has a diaphragm. And what we think about the lungs when we think of breathing, but if your diaphragm isn't working, you can't breathe. The diaphragm is essential to life. So I have my students, that's one thing we do is a lot of belly breathing and opening up the rib cage. So we're not breathing up here where it's shallow, but we're breathing and driving the oxygen throughout the body.
And what's the advantage of that?
Twofold. I mean, you're bringing oxygen in. You need that. That's the life force. And that also takes oxygen into your vital organs, which needs them. It helps the flow of your blood. We need that oxygen. And then we need to exhale to really let the carbon dioxide out. So it's getting the body and the mind together to understand how important it is to take those deep breaths and let them go. Because we all know when we slow down and take those big, full belly breaths and then we let it go, the body does some relaxation, the mind starts to relax.
But how do you translate that into your everyday life and, your everyday issues that you're having?
When I teach my class, what we do is we have an intention that we set at the beginning of the class. And I might talk about, things that are going on in your life and how, maybe there's chaotic things going on. And then I will tell them, and now we're going to practice balance. And so we come into the practice and we practice balance in the physical, let's say we do a tree. And I will start out by reminding them that you can't always have both feet on the ground. That's not life. Life's sometimes going to have a storm come right at you and blow you right over. So how are you going to maintain your balance if you can only have one foot on the ground? And think about that as an analogy for life. And that's kind of how I like to work people through the class. So when they leave, they're not leaving going, oh, that was a nice yoga class. They're going, oh, I can apply this to my life. Because that's what yoga is about. It's a way of life.
Kind of lifestyle changes you would direct people towards?
Well, anything that has to do, obviously, with health. And, as a naturopath, we take the approach that prevention is better than cure. And so it is better to look at living a healthy lifestyle and using what nature has given us to heal ourselves. So instead of running right out for drugs, which it's really easy to go to a doctor and get a prescription and say, okay, that's it. It's another thing to be able to use what nature has given us, which is, herbs, food, that stuff, in order to balance out the health of your body. There is no drug in this world that will rejuvenate or rebuild your body. Doesn't work. It's only good nutrition. That's kind of where, yeah.
So it seems like there's certain like mindsets that you kind of tap into, that people need to change. Perhaps it's a paradigm shift. What's your thought process on that?
Yeah, that's a very true. And when someone isn't ready, you can talk till you're blue in the face as an expression, and the person's not ready. And it's my job, especially as a naturopath, when people come to me, to understand if they're ready. There are people who will come to me and it's like, Dr. Lynn, take out your magic wand and tap me on the head and everything's okay. And it's like, no, this is going to be a long process. So it's a matter of understanding when someone is ready. And sometimes, unfortunately, we have to go to the very bottom before we can come back up again. Of course, the real key is to catch yourself before you hit that bottom, because you can get injured when you hit the bottom sometimes.
Yeah, now it's interesting you say that when you hit the bottom. I commonly use that phrase. It's like sometimes you have to hit the bottom in order to bounce.
Yeah.
You don't hit the bottom, it's just like a soft landing, and you end up staying right there, dragging along the bottom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so true.
But it seems almost it's like it has to get really, really bad until you realize you're like, I just can't do this anymore, and then that's when you're able to make a choice and change.
Exactly. And just what you said, you are able. That's free will. That's what we have to remember. You have the power, and only you. I cannot say to you, all right, this is what I want you to do, if you're not ready to do it. But if you have that willpower, there's nothing that's going to stop you from getting done or being able to do whatever it is you have to do. So that is so important for us to understand that we all have it. We all have choice.
What would be the most common lifestyle issues that you've seen with individuals that are dragging them down?
Well, a lot of times people will come in, it's weight issues. That's one thing, especially as a naturopath, people would come with that. And of course, they're looking for a quick fix too. And there is no quick fix. I would say the biggest thing today that I'm finding is burnout. And I think it's a matter of people are, and I think everybody feels this way. It's like, well, I'm not sure if I trust the government. I'm not sure if I trust this person. I'm not sure if I trust the news. People seem to be overwhelmed with a lot of stress. And that stress, of course, can lead right into burnout. And that's what I think is what I see the most from people today.
Obviously there's lots of choices on what individuals can do to treat themselves or seek care. And traditionally individuals might go to, like Western medicine doctor. But who are the individuals that seem to be attracted to you and your services, or the naturopathic services?
I would say people who have that sort of, there's been some kind of an awakening, some kind of an awareness. And it's not and I don't bash the Western medicine. There's wonderful, you need surgeons and you need doctors for many, many things. But it's usually people who are looking for some kind of alternative method, and they're much more open to what alternative medicine is. I would say that when I started my practice 35 years ago, I was called a quack by many, many people, and you had certain people that come, but if you said I'm a naturopath, people like, oh, you're not a doctor, you're a quack. Today, it's wonderful with social media and everything, for me to look out onto the world and see people practicing this and going, wow, they have so much more freedom than I did when I started. But I'm so glad people like me kept pushing it forward, because now more people are getting access to, holistic medicine, and that's really important.
Right. So you were like one of the original, right? Or not
Well,
the
no,
original, but
but
I
but
think in today's time.
yeah, I mean, you're going back now to like the 80s, and in the 80s, that was just, I mean, you had a smaller group of people. Well, I have to say, I'm an old hippie. So, and the hippies, that's what we were at. It was back to earth. It was natural. It was, and so I think you had people who maybe sort of had that bent in, the baby boomers who were my age that maybe had a little more thinking and questioning Western medicine, as opposed to, say, my parents who just go to the doctor.
So I know you mentioned the, awakening or awareness and in the hippie times, I know that was related to a lot of like psychedelics and LSD and psilocybin and things of that nature. What's your understanding of how those chemical compounds played a role in the awakening? And why did it happen during the 60s? And also, do you think that it's happening now again?
Mhm. Well, I think during the 60s, of course, was a time of revolution, and I think you had the hippies, you had a lot of people my age who we were probably the first really affluent group of people. We weren't depression babies. There wasn't really a war until, of course, the Vietnam War, but there was Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement. So I think that what happened was there was kind of this opening of experimentation. What can we experiment with? And of course, it usually started with cannabis. And yes, it went into other drugs, which, Timothy O'Leary and all of these people were trying to bring into the science community. But again, go back and think about what was happening during the 60s in terms of psychology, really not an open field at that time. It was considered somewhat of there's something wrong with you if you went to see a psychologist back then, where today it's everybody has a counselor, it's a very open. But so there was a mindset that this stuff was not something that we could move forward with, like mushrooms and things like that. Today, that's coming back around and they are experimenting with that. But I would say that I'm not really on top of the science of that kind of stuff. I just know it's happening out there.
It seems like a lot of the similar ideas and the stuff that I'm learning now, as I research back during those time periods of the 60s and 70s, a lot of the same ideas, and they'll call it the new age, or people were trying to get away from religion and finding these new philosophies and ideas. And just, if you kind of live through that experience, now you're in both of them. What are the similarities that you see?
We were certainly a lot more naive back then because we didn't have, social media and all of this stuff coming at us, and we were less global. We were more local, where today you live in a global world. I mean, instantaneously, I can be anywhere in the world on the internet, or even traveling, I can be anywhere. So I would say that there was more of a naivete back then. It was more anti-establishment is how it was driven back then, where now it's not so much, I think, anti-establishment. It's a little more open. We're more open to discussing these things. I mean, you and I are discussing psilocybin. We're discussing this stuff. You go back then, you had to be really careful. You could have the feds knocking on your door because you had a conversation on a radio with somebody about stuff like that. So I think we have a little more freedom now. However, if you look at the world, as I tell my students, there will always be war, there will always be famine, there will always be greed. Those things aren't going to disappear. That's human nature. That's why we're here. It's what we do with them and what we call them in each journey of our life. We may call what we're doing in war different now than we did back then. It's the same thing,
Right.
right? People are making money off war.
Amazing. When you said it was anti-establishment back then, it really made me think that we are in the midst of anti-establishment here as well, because there's a lot of people that just don't agree with the political nature of what's going on, and they feel like, they're being taken advantage of, or being lied to. And you know
And again, that goes back, I would say there's a lot of naivete there. I have been a very fortunate woman that I have traveled the entire world. There's not too many places I haven't been. And I've been in situations where I've been in a Muslim country and I've sat on the floor and eaten in a family room. I've done those kinds of things. I've been in a Jewish kibbutz. I've been, to all of these different things. And what I say to people is go travel the world, go to talk to people. First off, what you'll find is no matter where you go in the world, everybody wants to be, no matter what their color, no matter what their background, everybody wants to be happy and peaceful and live a nice life. That's generally where people are, And then you have all of this, you have just different philosophies and things, different religious things, and probably the real religious, wherever, whether it be Christian, Muslim, Jewish, whatever it is, the real zealots, are very controlling, and that's in every religion.
Right.
So if you can kind of back away from that and see people in the world for what it is, it's important that I think people practice kindness and honesty. Those things are really important, and not to forget how important they are.
Traveled around the world quite a bit as well, and one of the things that I noticed was it almost feels like the things that we've been told are not really true. And
Correct.
specifically, what I'm speaking about is like I was just in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai, and it was beautiful,
Yes.
super safe, and the people were amazingly nice. And that's not what we've been told. Like when before I'd been there, you think of the Middle East as everybody's wearing these towels and they're living in caves and like they're third
Yeah.
world, you know what I mean? And that is not the case at all. And it just makes me wonder, what else have we been lied to, throughout the world? And what has been your experience?
Well, the best way to control people is through propaganda. Okay. And that was kind of like what I think the hippies and, the 60s kind of was trying to break through that propaganda, because we were handed total propaganda about the Vietnam War. It's propaganda about Ukraine and about Israel. Everything that we get is someone's opinion, and it's also strewed so that they make us believe what they want us to believe. That's how you control, and that's how human beings, with fear. And once we let go of that fear, and once we open up, and once we start having discussions and we travel like you've done and I've done, it opens yourself up to seeing the world in a very different way. Then the question is, what do you do about it? Because it's hard to break through that layer of people that are controlling the world.
You mentioned the religions are controlling. Why do you think it's the religions that are doing it? And why not more like military control?
Every war that's ever been fought has a religious element to it, and it is part of, we here in this country we're a Christian-based country. The United States is, although it's multi, that is its basis, just like the Middle East has a Muslim, and Israel a Jewish, So what happens is, if you peel all the layers back and you look at religions, there's an element in there of wanting to control and own. And that is fostered by government, and it's fostered by military, and it's fostered by greed, because every war that is fought makes a lot of money for some people and really hurts the poor innocent person. So, war isn't necessarily that that Putin's going to take over Ukraine. It's more, there's minerals there, there's resources there. Who's going to control them? That's what war is.
Yeah, and it happens everywhere, and it's been happening for thousands of years.
And it's going to continue. There will always be war because there will always be greed, and there will always be a very evil sense towards power. Those things don't disappear. They're always going to be there. It's just, what do you do with them when you're confronted with them?
In my experience, religion has kind of, they packaged some positive messages along with some other non-positive messages, which is essentially what the government is doing as well. They package things that are helpful from one hand and, you know, tearing us down from another end. They talk about the different lifestyle habits and things of that nature. What aspects of the religious teachings have you implemented into your teachings, or where is there a crossover?
Well, I think all religions do teach that, well, I was raised very liberally with a Christian background, although, very liberally, as they say. But I was raised, the Ten Commandments, do unto others. So I think, and if you look at the teachings of yoga, yoga has the yamas and the niyamas. If you look at those carefully enough, they're the Ten Commandments. You find them in every religion. You find those same things, and I think if we can all kind of come back to the basics of what those things mean, respect, move away the religious stuff that comes in, the ideologies that come in, and just look at, what they mean. They mean that, you're a human and I'm a human. We should treat each other respectfully, with dignity, with care about each other. And imagine if everybody did that. It'd be a great world.
I mean, is my understanding, and I don't know how true this is, but the phrase, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you, is in some form a part of every religion. And
Yes.
they use different words and slightly different stuff, but essentially the meaning, the essence of it is in every religion.
Right. But where it gets misconstrued is, let's say that do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and I steal something from you. So you say, okay, I'm chopping her hands off. She didn't do me right, so I'm chopping her hands off. So then we can twist it. See how easily that can get twisted, rather than keeping it where you and I both know what that means. If I want you to be kind to me, I should be kind to you. If I
Right.
want you to be generous, I should be generous to you. But that doesn't mean that's going to always happen. I could be generous to you and you could take advantage of me, but it's up to me then to have my free will and my strength and balance within myself to see it for what it is and move away.
So it's almost as if religion is more so the interpretation of these ideas in the different
As,
life.
yeah, if you look at it, I mean, you've got how many different Christian sects out there, and every one of them has a different interpretation of the Bible.
Right.
And the Jewish people have a different interpretation, and the Muslim people, it's interpretation. It's how you interpret something, and then how you know, communicate that to whoever you want to control, because religion does have a big element of control in it.
Yeah, it gets confusing, right?
Mhm.
In a way, then, would the teachings of yoga in from one perspective be controlling, or is it more so like guiding? And what's the difference?
Yoga is not about following anything. Yoga is about you. It's about you discovering you and you making those choices. So I can present you with the philosophy. It's how you, as an individual, use that philosophy. So yes, yoga is a guide. Yoga doesn't dictate. It's like karma. Karma doesn't say you got to do this or this is the way it is. Karma says, hey, you do whatever you want with your energy while you're here, but you might want to pay attention, because according to karma, we reincarnate. And pay attention. You might want to come back at a little softer landing next time and a little, easier life. So pay attention to what you do. Pay attention to what you do. Don't pay attention to what I do.
So I mean, it's almost like we're attracted to the teachings or not.
Hmm. Yeah.
depending on how it affects our lives.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, you can, I mean, there are people out there that think that would never even go to a yoga class. Wouldn't even, they have a whole different, I mean, I have taught yoga and I've had people come into my class and say, I would never come in here because you're teaching a religion that's against Christianity. It's like, what? Where did that come from, And but so it's really just about as a teacher, it's about me providing you with what I can teach you, and then you do with it what you want, because I can't tell you what to do with it. And
Right.
I shouldn't. I shouldn't. That's not my job. It's not my role.
So you'd mentioned that the most common person that comes to you is more like burnt out. Um, why are you finding that they're burnt out, and then how do you address those issues?
Burnout can go from physical, mental, and soulful. And of course, a lot of times people just are not taking care of their health. And, so the burnout is, they're just not feeling good. They're not healthy. I mean, I've had cancer people come. I've had, it's the physical part, but it's also, I think it's the stress that we face in today's world, because you have information coming at you, bombarding you every single moment. And the information is, who knows what's true and what isn't true anymore. Our sense of reality has changed. It's shifted. You go on to Instagram or anything, and I mean, probably 80% of what's on there is fake. Made up, or it's not. So it's like, how do you discern between what is real and what isn't, what is good, what is bad? That you have to come back to your own moral compass and look at the world from that point of view. So I think mostly it's just they're overloaded, and it's like, I don't know what's true and what isn't true anymore.
Would it be fair to say that their focus of their energy is all over the place, and they're losing the energy in different ways, and your ability to refocus them on what's important in their life? Is that
Yes, I mean, one of the basics of yoga is balance. Seek balance in all things, and in all things find balance. Balance is the key to everything. Because again, if you have perfect balance, body, mind, and soul, you got perfect health. You got all this energy. So people are scattered. Everything's scattered out there. So the job is to bring them back in, but not just to sit and tell them, well, you need to find balance and here, but to take their bodies and make them work to find balance, and to understand that if I want to bring everything back to balance, I need to come into the moment. I need to focus. I need to be still. I need to feel myself breathe. And when they can get that, and even if it's just for a second, then the body and the mind come together and they start to communicate and say, this is balance. And that's how you help someone come back and regain their balance.
so they have to, it's a feeling.
Yes, yes, because you and I we can talk all day about balance. We can intellectualize it till the moon, and we're not going to understand it. But we go and we practice balance, whether it be to quiet your mind and stay focused on, you're in a learning session and you need to quiet yourself and stay there and focus, or you need to do a tree in yoga,
Mhm.
then you begin to understand, this is what balance is.
Hmm.
So you have to feel it.
So when they're burnt out, they're out of this balance, or they're incongruent with the what they believe they should be. Is that fair to say?
That's very fair to say. And more times than not, stress, they're eating terribly and they're not sleeping and they've given up their exercise, and that's part of that chaos of being out of balance. And it's coming back and getting back to that place of balance, both feet on the ground. We do standing mountain in my yoga class, and I get them in standing mountain and I just say, stop. What's it feel like to have both feet on the ground, be in perfect alignment, perfect balance? And you see everybody standing there, and it's like, first time they really thought about it. Oh, wow, yeah, it's pretty nice to be in this place.
Yeah, I find some people they calm they just don't know where that is and they don't have it within them. And it's so difficult because it's like constant movement, constant going. And that I think is the distraction away from, just sitting still. And when you sit still, you can see all the movement around you and you recognize and you realize it and you realize that it's not part of you.
Exactly. And it helps you to be able to come back and control. And what happens if you control your posture, if you control the movement and you have your body strong, everything's flowing through your body. All the energy is flowing. It's improving your health. Your mind is clear. You're going to make better decisions. You're going to be much better at solving problems if you come from it from a balanced place as opposed to, out here, it's really hard to make decisions out here.
Let's kind of step over to the nutrition side of this. What kind of dietary changes do you find that most people need to make in order to elevate or raise their vibrations?
Well, there are two things. One is overeating. We eat big portions of food. And the second one is fast food, junk food, processed food, because we've become a society that is addicted to those kinds of food. So that's where I find that people really fall into. It's very difficult to make that shift around and start eating whole foods, which is the only place that you really get nutrition, and to manage the proportion that you're eating, because your stomach, if you keep eating huge amounts of food, you need huge amounts of food, then you need more food and more food, and that's when people put on weight and their body gets compromised.
So do you have recommendations for, like for example, like intermittent fasting? Do you have generic recommendations for individuals that they might be able to try different stuff?
What I tell people is the one true diet that is the Mediterranean diet. If you come back and you really look at the Mediterranean diet, it kind of gives all of the things that we need in order to have, a healthy lifestyle. And I'm not a big person. I've never supported really fasting, because when you're fasting, if you stop eating, your body has to start eating itself, because it's got to eat. So your body's going to eat up those it needs nutrients to be balanced. So if you all of a sudden take everything away from the body and you're not giving it anything, the body's going, wait a minute. And then if you stuff back in, the body's going to go, wait a minute again, because the body really wants you to keep things balanced. It's just, as we say, the body's just a machine, and it's only going to act as to what you put in it. The fuel you put in is the energy that comes out. So I say to people, the Mediterranean diet, if you want to pick something, look at the Mediterranean diet, and that will give you what you need.
And what's your feelings on meat and meat products?
For many, many years, I was a vegetarian, and I got sick. And the doctor said to me, you really need some iron in there, and you really need to start eating some red meat. And I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And then I read that the same thing happened to the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama and the Dalai Lama started eating small portions of meat. And so I did, but I made sure it was grass fed, and I made sure it didn't have hormones in it. And I made sure that, I really lean more towards the fish and poultry than red meat. And then how I did it is throughout my day until dinner time, I eat vegetarian. And then at dinner time, if my husband wants to have a steak, then we'll have, a steak, but we have a good steak, but we also have fish and we have chicken. So I think it's up to the individual. And what we have to realize is everybody's body is different, and everybody needs different things for different reasons. Some people, if they can, vegetarian's great. The only one I would say caution is, with a vegan diet, make sure that you are getting all the amino acids and everything you have to get. That's a little bit trickier to make sure you get all the nutrients that you need.
And how do you recommend getting electrolytes and amino acids and things of that nature?
Well, again, if you go back to eating meat, that's a good way to do it. Make sure that you stay totally hydrated. That's another, really good way to do it. If you're eating fruits and vegetables, you're getting all of the things that you're getting water, you're getting the hydration, you're getting the electrolytes, you're getting all the minerals and vitamins in if you eat whole foods. But if you start to take those foods apart and you start to package them, you've lost the minute you cut an apple, for example, you start to lose the nutrients. So it's eating whole foods, which will give you all of those things that you need.
So as far as like supplementation, do you recommend supplementing?
I don't, and I'll tell you why. They've done many studies and they found that the majority of supplements out there have garbage in them. And, if you are producing supplements, you don't have to prove efficacy. And what that means is you don't have to prove that it works. They're not FDA approved. So I can sell you a supplement. I don't have to prove that it really does what I say it does. So I could be selling you nothing. When I first started in my career, I was on the board for a supplement company, and I saw on the inside what that company, like all other companies, were doing. And at that point, I sort of moved away and said, you know what? If people want to do supplements, that's up to them, but I don't support any supplements. And I think that makes it better for me as a practitioner because I'm not competing. I'm not trying to get you to buy my supplements so I make money. I can be much more open.
So instead of supplementing, you would direct them more towards a more diverse food?
More towards pay attention to your diet. If you eat a healthy diet and you pay attention to it, you will get the nutrients that you need. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. They'll say, well, you can't get this, it's not coming out of the soil. They'll go but that's not true. I mean, that's a really good way to get you to eat processed food or take supplements or whatever it is they want you to take. But if you were to eat a really healthy, organic, whole diet, you're going to get everything that you need. But again, we live in a society that is not conducive to eating that way. We live in a society that's conducive to grabbing things off the shelf, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Would you say that most people have some type of deficiencies?
Yeah, I would. I would say that most people, yeah, because, and it all comes back to the way they eat. And also remember that stress does a number on your body. So even if you're eating a healthy diet and you're under tremendous stress, it's going to compromise your body. Then you got to really pay attention to what you're doing because your body is burning up that energy with the stress.
Just out of curiosity, do you think that the stress that people experience is due to the situational experience or the way that they respond or react to the situation?
Well, stress is a response. So it is a response. So it's how we respond to things out there. So it's not just here's a situation, because I could put you in a situation and you could be really stressed. You could put me in the same situation and I'm handling it just fine. So it's how you perceive things. We have been programmed to perceive things the way the government, the way a religious, whatever it is, whatever who's trying to control, being programmed to perceive things and stay in a state of fear. As long as you have people in fear, you can control them.
So what's your practice at getting people to reduce their level of stress and calm down?
For them to be able to see things as they are and to remind them, when we do some deep breathing, I have them take a nice deep breath and I want them to feel their body rise. And then they feel their body fall when they let the breath go. And I remind them that everything in life rises and everything falls. That's the nature of life. So you can either sit back and kind of watch that, or you can go, oh God, stressed out about it. But again, things are never there's always going to be war. There's always going to be famine. There's always going to be these things, What can you do about it? The best thing you can do is to come from a balanced place, because when you're balanced and you're healthy, then you have that energy to give to my students. I can give it to my clients. I can put that energy out there if I have it within myself. But if I don't have it within myself, I'm no good to anybody. So that's the best thing we can do.
When I heard you saying that, that everything oscillates and, goes up and down, it reminded me of the Hermetic teachings. They discussed this, that life is like a pendulum and it swings from the positive to the negative. And, we choose to either be on that pendulum and swing from the positive and the negative, or the master can rise above the pendulum and allow the swings to occur below them and not be affected by them.
Yeah, it's like in yoga, Shiva is dancing at this big wheel, and the wheel has chaos and fire and brimstone, everything going on it. And Shiva goes into the dancing pose. That's what the dancing pose means. It means that Shiva sees all of this going on, but Shiva can dance. So you have a choice, because it's not going to change. But if you think, oh my God, the world's a mess, and it's like, yes, it is, but there's also a lot of beauty in the world.
Mhm.
And where do you want to put your awareness? Where do you want to put your focus? Because it's your energy and your life, and you can do with it as you choose. That's your free will.
Right. And
Just be
so,
careful. Just be careful.
right. So, I mean, the positive is always there. The negative is always there. It just depends on what we decide to perceive or let into our lives.
That's correct. Yep. Yep.
You had mentioned previously about discuss the importance of sleep. Can you touch on that point a little bit?
We really don't know why we sleep, except that we have to sleep to rebuild and rejuvenate the body. It's the only way the body rebuilds itself. It needs sleep. Okay, we need to do that. It is important, and it also has to do with your third eye is connected to your pineal gland. And the pineal gland is the only gland in the body other than the eyes that can detect direct light. That's why it's important to have a dark room when you sleep. Now, the pineal gland, part of what it does is it helps us to produce melatonin. And melatonin is an antioxidant. So melatonin's job is to go in and clean up all the garbage in your brain and your body that you produce that day. So that's why it's important to rest, because when you give the body the rest, then you allow these antioxidants to go in and clean everything up so that you wake up rejuvenated and ready to go the next day. So sleep is really important for cleaning up some of the garbage that happens.
I've been tracking my own sleep for years now, and what I found is that despite going to bed at a time when I would believe that I was get 8 hours of sleep, when I actually tracked it, as it turns out, I was only sleeping for 5.5 to 6 hours, as opposed to the 8 hours that I was in bed. How is that important to individuals in the long term?
If you don't get enough sleep, it catches up with you. And we can't, again, we go back to balance. If you go all week on barely no sleep and then you sleep in all weekend, you've thrown everything off balance. The pineal gland doesn't know what's going on. What are you doing here? The body's going, wait a minute. I need you to do the work and to get the body tired, and then to let it rest and let it rebuild itself. So it's all a matter of balance. So when we get into bed, the problem is most of us, again, take stress and burnout and all that stuff with us when we go to bed, or we've got our phones or whatever, and we're not going in and allowing the body to just let go and do its job, do what it needs to do.
So do you feel like that, when you bring all that stuff to bed, are people, your patients, are they having a problem getting the benefits of sleep, even though they're putting forth the effort?
Yeah, because their sleep is erratic. It's not, and more times than not, they're not breathing. They're not taking the time to breathe. You can use yoga breath when you're in bed. If you're using those deep breaths and letting go, it'll bring a sense of calmness to the body and the mind. Studies have found, for example, that when you don't get enough sleep, your gait is off and people tend to have more accidents. So think about, I know if I haven't gotten a good night's sleep and I'm really tired, my shoulders might be down, I might be shuffling my feet a little bit. You don't have that vibrancy. And so people tend to have a cloudiness about them, and they can fall, they get hurt, they make mistakes, they don't make good decisions. So you kind of got to have the computer clean, and the body energized.
Do you do labs on individuals or testing to check on people's levels and stuff? And how does that look in your practice?
I don't, because I'm not a medical doctor. So what I do with my practice is I usually will suggest, if they haven't, that they go to their general practitioner and they have a blood panel done, and then they bring that panel back to me, and I can help them read it and discern what's going on in there. So it's important, yes, to have those lab readings, because it tells us a lot about, what's going on in your with your blood. And so yeah, I that's one way to approach it, and I do usually suggest people do that.
Okay. And do you have other means of, shall we say, measure to determine, how people are progressing and whether they, need to do more or less of certain things to.
Mhm. If it's in yoga, of course, I can see physically. Physically, I can tell, and you can physically tell me what's going on mentally by the way a person is going in and out of the poses, whether they're breathing, that kind of stuff. Um, you learn how to be able to look at someone's face and look in their eyes. The eyes tell you a tremendous amount about where someone is at in terms of their health. If the eyes are dull and they're drooping and they're bloodshot or whatever, that tells you an awful lot. You can tell by the color, their complexion, their skin, by the way they hold themselves. People who are depressed and burnt out, they're not like this. People who are really healthy and happy are up like this. So what you do is you read the body language of an individual. My undergraduate degree was in communication, and we did a lot of studying on body language. And so I use that a lot to be able to see what's going on with somebody. And I kind of tap into their aura a little bit too.
Right. No, that's kind of interesting. I read books on how to read people and how to tell what they're saying, even by their face, the way their eyes look. I mean, there's different FBI ex FBI people or CIA they teach the stuff about how to read people. So it's kind of interesting that you utilize that. Is that a common practice for you? Is in that, I mean, or is that just kind of become natural to you over time that you kind of get a sense of people just by their characteristics?
Yeah, I mean, you do it enough, you can meet someone and you can immediately do a reading on them. And if you really kind of pull back enough, you can see their aura too, and you can tell what's going on. You can see what kind of energy is flying off from a person. Even when a person, if you look at them and they say, "Yes, I'm fine," you could go, "Oh no, 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 I could see something different here." And usually, if I ask the right question, all of a sudden they dump. It's like, blah, 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 and they let it all out. And then they'll say, "I've never done this with anyone before." And it's like, well, that's good. That's good that I was able to just hit that little target and get you to open up and let that out.
It's almost like
But
you had the lock and key.
yeah, I mean, it takes as a practitioner, you have to be very focused, you have to be very present, and you have to be really interested and caring about the individual in order to read that. If you come in and I'm just, sitting here with a notepad and say, "Well, what's wrong with you?" I'm not helping you.
Are you familiar with Reiki and any other energy medicines?
Yeah, when as a naturopath, where I kind of had to touch, we had to take different classes in, like I took one class in massage and Reiki, different modalities, but not to any way that I'm a profession in any of those. But certainly using, let's say, acupuncture or any of those modalities are wonderful things to be able to use. I mean, why would you want to run out and have surgery right away or run out and get on drugs
Mhm.
when you can shift and move your energy potentially using any of these?
When I heard this, it kind of made sense when they talk about like energy blocks
Yeah.
and these Eastern philosophies help to unblock your energy. And when they say, unblock, it's like you might have an ache or something in this area here, and then if you allow the energy to flow properly, the energy will heal it, all the issues themselves.
That is correct. That is correct. Because again, you are nothing but an energy field. That's all we are. We're just energy here. It's just where our molecules are going a little slower, so we have physical form. But if something is in your shoulder, if you've got a tightness in your shoulder, you can learn how to let go of that. You can breathe into that. If you focus on it and you breathe and you let go, the body will respond. It's just we hold it up here and then, can I get a drug to take care of this? Because I don't want to breathe. It's like, relax.
Yeah, one of the things that kind of trips me out is like when I'm in a meditation, I'm able to completely relax and my pains go away. But then as soon as I come out of the meditation and start moving around, the pains come back. It's like my
Mhm.
memory comes back and I remember that it's there, and then it manifests and becomes. Why
Exactly.
does that happen?
Well, the brain and the body, we're a nervous system and there's just communication going on all the time. So the brain, it's a good thing that the brain says to you, hey, there's pain down there, there's pain in the knee, there's pain in the shoulder, so you pay attention to it. So what happens is we come back out of that and then we come back and we're more in touch with the body, get much more in touch with your physical world and back into your physical world, and then the body and the mind start to communicate on another level.
Mm.
And that's why we come back and we feel it is good to be able to feel pain because then you can do something about it.
I guess unblock that energy. Is it just a matter of practice? I mean, if I'm able to in a way forget about the pain, if that's the right word, where it goes away for a period of time, how do I make it so it goes away for all the time?
When you focus on it, when you come out of it, and let's say the shoulder comes right back, you got to breathe and let it go and concentrate on taking the breath there. The breath is a wonderful tool. You can drive the breath anywhere in your body. We know that. If I say to you, take a breath into your shoulder, you can take that breath, you can feel it rise the shoulder and let it go. It's kind of like natural childbirth. That's what that's about, is the breathing to take away the pain so that the mother can birth the baby. And we know that those breathing techniques can help people when they go into surgery or whatever or healing. So it's awareness and not tensing up, but going right back and relaxing that.
Hmm.
And that's how we do it.
So it's like drawing the life force, drawing the energy to that area for the
Yeah.
healing. Recently came across this concept, this idea that all healing is due to the life force or to the energy, and that whatever we are doing in this three-dimensional world is really just drawing in more life force. And if we're able to heal it, it's because we were able to draw in the life force enough to heal whatever we were trying to heal. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, the life force is what gives you life here on Earth. And by giving you life here on Earth, you have taken on human form. You cannot heal the body without good nutrition. You just can't do it. I mean, the body needs certain vitamins and minerals to operate. Take those away, and you can have all the life force that you want, you're going to be sick. So the life force is what gives us life. But then once we are here on this earthly life, we have to adhere to certain limitations. We need to be able to feed the body. What are you feeding the body? You don't need to feed the body tons of food and processed food. The body doesn't need that. The body needs certain things. And each one of those things, for example, if you eat an apple has the life force in it because it's a living thing. So the life force comes in, it has oxygen in it, it has nutrients in it. So you're supporting your health, life force to life force.
And so the life force comes through the food and
The
the
air,
interesting.
water, yeah, the life force, because the life force is what gives life to all of that stuff.
It's interesting when you were saying that you breathe into the pain, and as you were saying that, I was breathing into my shoulder pain, and it was, and as that happened, I was able to relax and feel less, which was kind of
Mhm.
interesting, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it's almost the conscious effort of breathing into it allowed me to somehow relax. And when I relaxed, I felt less.
But you took your awareness and you directed your energy in a certain direction. You consciously did the work to direct it to that shoulder. But if you're out here, if the shoulder's hurting and I'm going, my shoulder's hurting, and I'm not directing the energy, I can't help it. But if I direct the energy there, I can at least relieve some of the pain and the stiffness in the body.
So, what's your understanding of how these spontaneous healings occur, whether it be from cancer or, you know, when people have issues and they've been able to experience this spontaneous healing somehow? How does that work?
How does that work? That's a mystery. I wish I could answer that question intelligently for you. But I would say, the body is a miraculous machine. You can do some horrible things to the body and it can come back like you wouldn't believe. So I would say that sometimes, we maybe rush in a little too fast sometimes when we're diagnosed with something. I mean, it's like a rush to surgery and a rush to drugs rather than thinking about what we might be able to do that, could bring the body again back to balance. So, I don't know. I don't know if there's something out there that's tapping in on certain individuals or not, but I think it, probably all comes back to if we really got into those things, that the person was able to bring themselves to a very balanced place, that they were able to reduce their stress and they were able to find out what it is that is causing, and they were able to let go. That's the real key. Because sometimes people like to own and hang on to their diseases and their problems, right?
Mm, that's the truth.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they identify with it,
Yeah.
and that's their identity. Like they have a bum leg and they have to walk around, and they're the one that has the cane, and they identify with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. It's like a lot of mental problems and stuff. People get caught up in identifying with it. And then, you life becomes what life does. It just is a spinning wheel. That's karma. If I say, oh, I've got mental depression, and I keep myself locked into it. And I don't do the things that I can do, which we know that nutrition helps with depression. We know exercise helps with depression. We know things you can do that help. If you're not willing to do those and you stay in that wheel, that's your karmic wheel. That's where you're at.
The choice, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't. I think it's almost as if people don't want to acknowledge that it's their choice, especially if they're stuck in a spot where they don't like, and they're like, "Well, what do you mean I chose to be here? That's crazy."
Exactly. And, it's like, it's really nice to push the responsibility off on the government, other people, my family, my husband, my wife. It's easy to push and point the finger. That's a really easy thing to do. But we have choices. If you're in a toxic situation, whether it be a relationship or a friendship or whatever, you have to make that choice. If you stay and continue to let that toxic relationship control your life, that's up to you. You can remove yourself. And even if you can't remove yourself physically, you can mentally remove yourself. It takes, again, it goes back to what karma is a lot of work. It takes work. If you're willing to do the work, I can tell you that your life will change in miraculous ways. But if you're not willing to do the work, then hey, just keep spinning. It's okay.
You get what you get, and you don't throw a fit, right? That's my little.
Ex- exactly, exactly.
Yeah. I find that a lot of people they don't want to do the work, and when you talk about sitting still, that's as if you're telling them to cut their leg off. When we talk about like meditating and just sit still for a little while, it's not popular in our society, and people certainly don't want to talk about it. And I don't think our society really understands yet the benefits of meditation, and how it can help to train the mind and you know as a consequence cause the calm and relaxation that we all seek.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're run, 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 make money, consume, 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 especially here in America, capitalism, that's what it really is, you know, and we aren't rewarded for taking time to be calm, to be balanced. And I think if people had more of that, they would approach their jobs differently. They would approach life differently. But then again, there's this thing that we keep coming back to. It's called greed. And humans, even the most purest of us, have an element of greed in us. Everybody has that. And it's not, as I tell my students, it's not wealth that destroys the world. It's greed. Wealth is good. It is good to be wealthy because if you live in a wealthy society, you have medicine, you have education, you have arts, you have wonderful things. People are fed, they're housed. It's wonderful to have wealth. It's what you do with it. And unfortunately, we live in a world that is pretty greedy.
Been said even that when you are giving, that you're actually seeking a positive feeling for yourself. You also consider that greed?
That's my reason for being nice and kind, is to get that good feeling in me. Yes, because in karma, you do the work and you don't look for anything in return. You're not looking to get any accolades from anyone. You're just doing the work because it's the work you need to do. You're being kind because you want to be kind, not because you want people to like you. So yes, that can be considered greed. That can also be deceiving yourself and deceiving another person. That's one of the things that we have to work through here and with karma, is deceit.
So it's doing good without any expectations.
It just shouldn't matter to me what anybody thinks about me. I want to be a kind person because I value kindness. I value it, and I know how much good it can do in the world. So if I put that out there and I don't expect anything in return, then it said I'm working my karma in a very positive direction. But if I'm looking to get back, then I'm hauling back greed.
So here's a tough one for you. What do you, in your opinion, the purpose of life?
The purpose of life, according to karma, is you are here to work through the four great passions. And we reincarnate and we come here, and our job is to be faced with the four great passions. There's also a number of other things that go in the karmic philosophy, but the basic four great passions are deceit, greed, anger, and pride. And each and every one of us will be confronted with those. One of them is more in your life than the other. And so what happens is we're here to work through those. That's the purpose. Whether we do it or not doesn't matter, but we will be confronted with those. And at the end, we go to what karma calls the holdover place. And then you have an opportunity to look back, free of being any emotions or feelings, free of being a human, and do an assessment of your deeds and misdeeds before you come back again, according to karma.
Do we have to come back?
According to karma, you keep coming back until you have evolved to the level where you don't have to deal with any of this anymore. Now,
So
I don't know too many people that have evolved to that level, but according to karma, let's say you really work through those four passions in this lifetime to a much higher degree. You will come back in a much different place the next time, and you won't have to. Here's an example. If you had a really bad marriage in a past life, they would say, and you didn't work through all of those things, you're probably going to come back and have a bad marriage in this life. You're going to experience that again. Now, if you realize how to change that and how to get rid of, let's say, anger was the issue, and you work on your anger and you remove your anger and you get rid, then you don't have to come back and experience that again. You can come back and experience something beautiful. And there are many people in this world that have wonderful marriages, have good lives, and it was said that they've gone through the evolution more times.
So would it be fair to say that while we're here on this planet, that we are constantly producing new karma?
Mm-hmm. Yes, you are.
And with new karma, then because we have unresolved karma, that would force us to come back to work through that karma. then is there an endpoint to where we've worked through all of our karma and we can exit this, wheel of karma?
Yes, that's the philosophy of karma. That's the whole journey. The journey is to get yourself to that point where you don't have to come back and work things through because you have worked them through. You don't need to come back and take on earthly life and experience all of this. And again, that's the philosophy of karma. Doesn't mean that it's true or it's not true, but it's what karma teaches is that that's the wheel. That's the birth and rebirth wheel that we all go through. So that's why we keep coming back to work those things.
And if we were able to exit the karmic wheel, what would happen then? Or what's the belief?
The belief is that we just become a part of the whole universe. We become connected to prana, or that ultimate energy out there, that you're just connected and floating in that beautiful, peaceful, wonderful energy. And there's nothing disturbing you. You're just part of that whole big universe, because we are part of the universe. We're all interconnected. Everything's interconnected. It's just your piece doesn't get sent out there. It just goes up to the holdover place and come back and holdover place and back and forth till we work it through.
So would it be perhaps the realization of the source energy or God
Mm-hmm.
or universal energy? I mean, I know I've heard different language.
Mm-hmm. I would call it that there's an intellectual energy out there. Intellect, however, and I don't mean that in the pure like intellect as we think of it, but there's some kind of force out there that we all go home to at some point. That's going home to it and being a part of it and not having to come back and keep, going through the repetition.
Interesting. So you've had a long career thus far. What would you say you would like your legacy to be? What do you want to be remembered for?
Well, I'd like to be remembered for, and I guess I would say that I have in my drawer, I have a huge, huge, huge stack of notes and letters and emails. And these come from the many hundreds of students that I've taught over the years. And some of them I don't even know. I can't put a face to the name. I don't even know. But they're the most beautiful things in the world. It's like, dear Dr. Lynn, I took your yoga class and you said this and it made the biggest difference in my life. It turned my life. Thank you so much. Things like that. That's what I want when I depart this world. I hope people will say, she really sincerely had a passion for what she did, and she really cared about helping other people. Because that's my karma, and that's what I think is important.
Mhm. So it almost sounds like, like if everything is energy, when you pass this three-dimensional world, your energy would live on through these people. Is that kind of how you see it?
Well, yes, we're all sharing energy, and if I help someone shift their energy, then I'm helping them with their karmic work. And that's the task that I've been given, is to be able to do that and to help them work through that stuff so that their life's better.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, Dr. Lynn, thank you so much for taking your time with us today. I really appreciate all this knowledge and insight you have on the energy world and naturopath. It's really brought a new light to us. So I really appreciate that. Was there anything else that you would like to say before we end this?
No, I'd like to thank you. This has been very insightful and a lot of fun. I've enjoyed this very much. I would say that if I would leave with something, I would say to everybody, remember that your health, body, mind, and soul is the most important thing in this world. That's it. Take care of it. That's what I'd leave with.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And I appreciate the time. Gandhi said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world. You must choose to become superhuman." Thank you for listening to this episode of the Becoming Superhuman podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Schmidt. Be sure to follow our social media channels. We'll see you next time.